Hi-Fi Rush absolutely crushing it over on the PlayStation 5. That's 2 games now. Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush crushing it over there. Now, Sea of Thieves is not yet out. It is on pre-order, but it's not dominating. It's in the top 10. It's in the top 5. Highly pre-ordered game over on the PlayStation 5. And once again, it proves 2 things. Well, it proves one thing. That Xbox has games that people want to play. I also think Xbox needs to improve its presentation. I think Xbox needs to improve its marketing. I think as we see these games going cross-platform and having huge success on multiple platforms, I just don't think they're as good at marketing their games as PlayStation has been. I think that's a fact. Now, the reviews are coming out for Hi-Fi Rush, and it's getting higher reviews on the PlayStation 5 than the Xbox. So the question has arisen, and some are asserting that this is proof that the Xbox tax is real and that this is a case of the Xbox tax. So the question, is the Xbox tax real? We're going to discuss that today, and is this a case of it? I don't think it is, but we're going to go over why. Do I think that there is bias in the media? Yes, absolutely. I do think I've seen it myself. I think there's definitely bias, but I think some of that can be solved with Xbox improving its marketing and presentation. I've talked about presentation before. In my last video, I talked about it on PlayStation 5, and a lot of people poo-pooed. Oh, who cares about presentation? Presentation matters. Presentation matters. Presentation sells. Presentation can give you an extra 2 or 3 points on something. Anyways, let's go over this. Here is Metacritic, and this is the review scores here. So first of all, the user review, 8.9. I think that's accurate. I played Hi-Fi Rush at release on launch on the Xbox. I beat it. I loved it. I'd give it a 9. I think 9 is accurate. I think an 8.9 is accurate. I even think an 87, I can see maybe it's not the type of game for you, but you can appreciate what the game is doing there. Very, very high scores, right? It was on a lot of people's Game of the Year shortlist. It was on my Game of the Year shortlist. The music, the beat, the battles, the way it works, how smooth it feels, the character development, the humor, the voice acting, all fabulous. The way the story ends, the way it ends is absolutely beautiful. I'm excited to see where Hi-Fi Rush goes from here. Let's replay this so that we can take a look at it. Again, excited to see where it goes from here. Excited to see sequels to this game, which I'm sure we'll get eventually. But let's take a look at the score on all platforms. So you can see these are just critic reviews over on Metacritic. 87 on the Xbox, 90 on the PC, and 91 on the PS5. Now, first of all, I would like to say that the PC versus consoles usually does higher. That's not unusual. That's not a new thing. PC scores tend to be higher. A couple reasons why. Number one is probably hardware. If you're a PC game reviewer, you probably have got ballsy PC game hardware. PC gamer? PC hard. You've got a ballsy PC. That's what I'm trying to say. So with that, you can run games at highest graphical settings, at highest frame rate settings. And so it makes sense to me why critic reviews are slightly higher on PC. That's nothing new. That's nothing unusual. So why is the PS5 critic review so far? First of all, they're not all in. We're talking 11 critic reviews for 63, but 91 over an 87. And it might be sample size for right now, but from what I'm reading from the PlayStation 5 reviews, a lot of it has to do with the DualSense controller. You've got adaptive triggers that add a lot to the experience, and the DualSense controller has something that I think is a little bit gimmicky. It has a speaker. I think that speaker is gimmicky. They show it off in the demo when you play. Very few games take advantage of it. However, having said that, remember, Hi-Fi Rush is a rhythm-based battle game. A speaker on a controller makes sense. A speaker on a controller would enhance this game. It would be useful in this type of game for sure, no doubt. And that's what a lot of reviewers are saying. A lot of reviewers are saying the DualSense controller is what puts this game over the top, is why it's the better place to play on the PlayStation, simply because of that controller. Now, if it didn't have that controller and the difference in score, then I would say, okay, this is biased. This is the Xbox tax for sure. But because of the controller difference, I totally get and understand, and I think it's reasonable that it gets a higher score on the PlayStation 5 as of right now. So question, does the Xbox theory hold water, or are there other factors at play in game rating discrepancies? Well, in this case, I think there are other factors at play. We talked about the DualSense controller for sure. I don't think it is an Xbox tax. Now, is that always the case? Let me give you an instance where I do think a game got more hate, and we've talked about it before on this channel, than otherwise would because it's exclusive to Xbox, and that is Starfield. When you look at the reviews on Starfield, some of those reviews are absolutely ridiculous. from the standpoint of I have 500 hours, I have 1,000 hours in this game, I'm giving this game a 0 because X, Y, and Z. I think that was a targeted PR move from a lot of people. I think that from a lot of people who were just mad, or entities that were just mad that Starfield did not come to PlayStation. If Starfield was on PlayStation, I do not think it gets the hate that it got for being on Xbox. That's just fact. Now, that's anecdotal. I have no data to suggest that, only experience. And keep in mind, I am an Xbox fan. I'm an Xbox fanboy. I love Xbox. It's where I play most of my gaming. So that could play into this as well, but I don't think I'm wrong there. I do think there tends to be journalists tend to lean towards PlayStation and give them the benefit of the doubt when they don't Xbox. Now, there are a couple reasons for that could logically explain it. I think, once again, the presentation matters. PlayStation is better at presenting things to the public, at controlling narratives, than Xbox is, period. Xbox's whole kerfuffle a few months ago with what their plans were to bring Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush to other consoles was proof positive of that. PlayStation announced that they're going to be doing the same thing. Not a word, because they control the narrative. They're much better at doing that. They're much better at presentation. That's a case where presentation and controlling the narrative matter, and Xbox just has not been good at it in my lifetime. Maybe the 360 they were better at it. I don't know. It's hard to say. But for right now, they're not the best at it. So it definitely will help. I actually have a lot of people in the comment section in my last video that I did this week where I talked about the presentation between the PlayStation 5 and how the presentation over there is superior. And if I was someone that wasn't already into consoles and I was having to choose with no prior knowledge, and I'm looking at hardware, the PlayStation hardware presentation is superior. I can see why I would pick that hardware, why hardware sales are better. Ultimately, that doesn't matter with Game Pass, but presentation can only help you. Improving that presentation can only help you, in my mind. Last question here. Let's go back to this video. It's a little bit more interesting to look at. Last question that I wrote down here. In what ways can the gaming industry ensure fairness and transparency in game evaluations across all platforms? I think that for the most part, Metacritic, I think Steam, are trying to do a good job. Nobody wants bias reviews. Everybody wants to account for review bombs. Everybody wants to account for outliers, people with an axe to grind. I think one thing that they can do, and I'm not sure that they don't do this necessarily, but I think one thing that helps is KYCing everybody. So KYC stands for Know Your Customer. Make sure that the person leaving the review is not a bot and is an individual who has actually played the game. That's why I like looking at Steam and looking at the hours played. I think that's a smart move. I think that you could probably take an extra step there. And for instance, if you play a game for 500 hours, I don't think you should have the option to give it a 0 or a 1. Like, if you play a game for 500 hours, what is that game at minimum? Why would you play a game that's less than a 5 for 500 hours? And that's what was happening with Starfield. And so maybe there's a time frame there. Like, if you play, maybe it's a percentage of the game. So how long to beat the game is calculated for the average player. If you beat the whole game, you have to give it a minimum of a 3 for say. I don't even think it needs to be that high, a 3, or it meets a 5. Are you playing? Let's say a game is a 5. Let's say we're on a 10-point scale here. If you are giving a game a 5, are you beating that game? Figure out a scoring system to where, all right, minimum, and you could be transparent about it. You could say 5, you beat the game, ergo you cannot give it less than a 5. 5 means it was good enough to play all the way through. Now, playing beyond that, playing extra hours, you could give it a 6, say, right? Like that. Anyways, figure out something there. Regardless, I do think these sites, I do think Metacritic and the like try to do a good job. I can't say the same about journalists necessarily, although I don't think most people, I think we have to take these reviews sometimes from critics, especially with a grain of salt. How many people look at critic reviews for movies, for instance? Almost nobody does. Why? Because critics of movie reviews are not watching the movie the same way you as a consumer and lover of movies are. They're watching it with their nose up. They're looking at different things. They have a different agenda entirely than what you want, than what the average consumer of movies wants. And that's why user reviews or user movie reviews are much better. For both movie reviews and for game reviews, I don't know who's going to traditional media. I'm going to YouTube videos of individuals who I trust to see. Now, on a place like IGN does show up on those reviews, and I do take into account what an IGN says. However, I go to people who I know share my tastes in games and who I trust to get their review, who have played the game all the way through. The other thing is streaming has completely changed the review game. So I don't know that reviews really matter that much, especially since streaming comes. They still matter, no doubt, and they matter especially for perception and for press, and they can help you for sure. But streaming is a better way to do it too. Watch someone play the game. If they're having fun, boom, I'm in. I'm gonna play this game and go from there. So those are two ways. I think for the most part, people are trying to do a good job. These platforms it's only in their benefit to have fairness and transparency in game evaluations across all platforms. I do think there is an Xbox tax sometimes. I do not think Hi-Fi Rush is an instance of this, but maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what I'm missing here. Am I missing something with the Xbox tax, or do you agree with me? It makes sense why Hi-Fi Rush, particularly because of what this game is and what the controller can do. I totally get why, having played the game, having beat the game, I get why it would score higher. Let me know also in the comments before you leave a comment, did you play this game and did you beat this game? If you didn't do either of those, then I don't want to hear from you. You don't have an opinion. And I think that that's a problem too. A lot of people online and social media get to express opinions on stuff after not ever playing the game, or maybe played it for 5 minutes. Well, or an hour. Well, really, you didn't say it's not for you, but you don't get to tell me that there's an Xbox tax if you've not played the game for longer than an hour. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of people online invested in their online persona that doesn't match up with their real life actions, for sure. I mean, that's social media 101, 100%. Anyways, would love to know what you guys think. Interesting. Happy Hi-Fi Rush is doing well. I think it proves that Xbox has games that can compete 100%. And it shows why Game Pass is going to be so powerful in the future. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, subscribe, share this video with your friends. I'm X1 the Gamer. We drop videos just like this all the time on this channel. All things Xbox. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.